Hello, Bridge Deer here, and welcome back to my channel. Guess what? Well, if you can't tell by the title, we are doing something different. Now, recently, I got really big into the whole booktube thing and love watching people review really bad books, especially young adult books, because there is a plethora of them out there. And recently I thought, what better thing for me to do, a highly dyslexic person, than to do book reviews? Well, to clarification, actually, for that one, oh, my bangs are fuck. Anyway, to clarify on that one, I'm not necessarily reviewing books when I do this series. It is more like commentary, just because I am not an editor, I don't know grammar, I don't know really crap about what makes the good structure of a book. I just know when something's bad, it's bad. So, to keep that out of the way, we are going to set the stage here. So let's transform ourselves back into 2007. Ooh, what a year. I think I was still in middle school then, I think. I don't know. I graduated in 2013. I don't know what, school is anymore, but let's pretend I do right now. Twilight was released in 2005. So 2 years ago, this whole new young adult franchise was released into the public eye. 2007 marked the Marked series, or Marked itself, this book, was released. And yes, it definitely is up the ass of Twilight. But only with, there being, a love triangle and vampires in it. That's the only similarity that these two books have. Otherwise, oh no, they don't have a third one. They're both cringy as hell. Here we are, we have The House of Night, Book 1, marked, and my cat is misbehaving. Get your butt down. So anyway, like I said, we have The House of Night, Book 1, marked. This is by PC Cast and Kristen Cast, a mother-daughter duo. Now, I understand that PC Cast is I think it's an award-winning fantasy and paranormal romance author, as well as an experienced speaker and teacher. That's really good. Yeah, I've seen her books around. I haven't read any others besides this. But I actually hear she's relatively good at writing. I don't know what happened with this series. But, Also, for her daughter, it looks like on the back cover, Kristen Cass has won awards for poetry and journalism. They both live in Oklahoma. That's kind of what all that says right there. So here we go. We're going to dive right into chapters 1 through 7. Of course, starting with 1, why would I start with anything else? But, just so you get the idea. So anyway, we're going to start out with the characters that you first meet in the first 7 chapters, just so that you can keep in the back of your mind that these are the relevant people, but most of them are only relevant for this chapter. I think that's why, I don't know why I just wanted to highlight them, because there actually is quite a few that they're fuck all. They're just there. So anyway, the characters we have is Zoe Montgomery, but she's later called Zoe Redbird. We'll talk about that when it gets there. She is our main and totally not a Mary Sue character. You're going to learn to probably not like her very much, but again, I'm getting ahead of myself. Then we have Kayla, or also known as K-Babble, in this story, because apparently she talks a lot, but we don't get a lot of representation of that. I don't know, she says 3 sentences, and everyone's like, oh my god, you're babbling. Anyway, she's the best friend that you can totally forget exists after the first 2 or 3 chapters, because she only shows up then and maybe one other time. No, she does show up one other time in the novel, and it's only for a page. Then I misspelled his name in my script as Health, but his name is actually Heath. The boyfriend, but not boyfriend, but totally the main character is Boo, who, just like Kayla, doesn't show up until nearly the end of this novel. So, you get, him in the first 2 or 3 chapters, and then suddenly, bam, he's back around in, the last 2 or 3. You kind of get to that point, and you're like, oh, yeah, I forgot about this man. We have Grandma Redbird, who's the most grandma-y grandma you will ever meet. Trust me on that. She's Zoe's grandma, and she is, if grandmas could be the Mary Sue of the novel, she's also that. So, it's exhausting. And then, again, every teenage daughter has to have parents. So we briefly touch on Zoe's mom and stepfather. Mother's not even named, honestly. She's just called Mom. I guess most teenagers don't call their mom by mom, but yeah. That's how little she means to this story. Same with the stepfather. They're referenced here and there. But other than that, they literally only have a physical appearance in, chapter 3, and that's it. Okay, so now that we have our roster of characters set up, it's time to dive right into page 1, first paragraph, an introduction to our main character. Let me know what you think about this. Just when I thought my day couldn't get any worse, I saw the dead guy standing next to my locker. Kayla was talking non-stop her usual K-babble, and she didn't even notice him at first. Actually, now that I think about it, no one else noticed him until he spoke, which is tragically more evidence of my freakish inability to fit in. So we have a teenager who's teenaging as hard as teenaging possible. Yeah. She says she has a freakish inability to fit in, yet she doesn't really showcase that. Okay, starting with Kay. Plus, he was celebrating. I mean, we beat Union. Kay shook my shoulder and put her face close to mine. Hello, your boyfriend. My almost boyfriend. I corrected her, trying my best not to cough on her. Zoe is sick, by the way. Whatever, Heath is our quarterback, so of course he's going to celebrate. It's been like a million years since Broken Arrow beat Union. 16. I'm crappy at math, but Kay's math impairment makes me look like a genius. Pretty sure she was just joking there and didn't actually mean a million years, but calm down. Again, whatever. The point is he was happy. You should give a boy a break. The point is that he was wasted for the 5th time this week. I'm sorry, but I don't want to go out with a guy whose main focus in life has changed from trying to play college football to trying to chug a 6-pack without puking. Not to mention the fact that he's going to get fat from all that beer. Okay. So, I guess it does showcase that Kayla also is as shallow as Zoe, so maybe they're also meant for each other in some way. But, whatever. It bugs me that she keeps correcting people that Heath is her almost boyfriend. It will happen so often in this novel that it will drive you absolutely batty. Like, every time Heath comes up, she's like, my almost boyfriend. It's not really my boyfriend. My boyfriend, but he's not my boyfriend. She still considers Heath a friend in this book, though. She continues to say that, oh, he's a friend. I still like him. I still kind of love him. I just can't handle his bad behavior right now. And that's about as far as it goes. It bothers me that she's more concerned with her almost boyfriend being fat than she is about his potentially harmful alcohol addiction. And that's just... And that's when Zoe sees the vampire. Slurred a bit. You literally get kind of like a repeat. Like, that first paragraph literally happens in the future, and then you kind of dive back to the past to talk about the Union game and all like that, and then you go back into the future about the vampire. We're going to get some exposition here, mostly from me, because the book doesn't say it too much later. Okay, the also silly part about this vampire, I know I'm going on about this vampire a bit, but the weird thing about this vampire is that he also speaks like no other vampire in this series. And even when I was a teen, I was like, what the hell is with this? Like, I thought she'd be going into the House of Nights and having to speak like this and have like speech lessons, or somehow as you turn into a vampire, you just start speaking in like old-timey, but whatever. Here, let me read it for you and tell me if you think it's a little weird. Zoe Montgomery. Anyway, Zoe Montgomery, night has chosen thee. Thy death will be thy birth. Night calls to thee. Hearken to her sweet voice. Your destiny awaits you at the House of Night. First of all, it seems like it should rhyme, but it doesn't. It really doesn't. I don't know why that throws me. It's maybe a me thing. Second of all, in the page previous to this, it talks about how vampires are not dead, and yet this reference to death, like Zoe's about to drop dead in the hallway right now. She does pass out at this point, though. Like, she gets, like, a shooting head pain, and she flops over on the floor, and everyone's like, oh no, our main character is on the floor! What shall we do? Except not everyone. We're going to move on to learn a tad about the vampire change. Zoe will either go to the House of Night at this point, which is the vampire finishing school, or she will drop dead. Apparently the House of Night adult vamps presence keeps the baby vampires alive. Why? Who knows, honestly. I don't believe they really explain it in here. I don't recall them ever explaining it, really. But yeah, you would think there's a lot of things that Zoe can be thinking, feeling, even saying about having to go to a new school and a new life and so on and so forth. And this is what she chooses to say about going to this whole vampire school thing, becoming a magical vampire teenage girl. Was that I have to move into the House of Night, a private boarding school in Tulsa's Midtown, known by all my friends as the Vampire Finishing School, where I would spend the next 4 years going through bizarre, unnameable physical changes, as well as a total and permanent life shakeup. And that's only if the whole process didn't kill me. Great, I didn't want to do either. I just wanted to attempt to be normal despite the burden of my mega conservative parents, my troll-like younger brother, who is never really referenced again after, like, chapter 2 or 3. Where was I? Oh, and my also perfect older sister, who's also not even really given a name in this book. That's how relevant she is. Anyway, moving on. I had wanted to pass geometry. I wanted to keep my grades up so that I could get accepted into a veterinarian college at OSU and get out of Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. But most of all, I wanted to fit in, at least at school. Home had become hopeless, so all I was left with were my friends and my life away from family. That now was being taken away from me, too. Honestly, thinking about this from a teenage point of view, and if I just got slapped with this kind of life-altering thing, I would be about where Zoe is too right now, being like, oh, woe is me, things are changing, I don't know, there's so much unknown, I can't handle this, I can't do it. All I wanted to do was just do this one thing in life and move on. So that I can give a lot of credit to the authors for getting in that, like, sense of dread and confusion. What isn't so great is she goes straight into this kind of, like, diss-fest on Heath and starts slamming other girls by another girl by calling her a hoe. Like, instantly after this paragraph, like, literally on the next page. So it's a little bit whiplash-y. You're trying to feel sorry for her, but then she turns around and she's like, you're an idiot and you're a hoe. Have fun. I don't know, do they think this is how teens emotionally react to things? Because I feel like they're quite a bit off, but whatever. So we end this chapter with Zoe hiding out in a bathroom, looking at herself. Like, she doesn't want anyone to see her mark right now. She's embarrassed, she's confused, she wants to go home, and I guess she's just a wee bit, catty. I'm just going to read this part out loud and then say something about it, because it's a thing. So, and talk a little bit about it. So before this, we have her describing herself, that she has long dark hair, hazel eyes, olive-toned skin, and that she has a lot of Cherokee features. That I am fine with. But then we get to this. I stared at the exotic-looking tattoo. Mixed with my strong Cherokee features, it seemed to brand me with a mark of wilderness, as if I belonged to ancient times when the world was bigger, more barbaric. Okay, so I'm not going to go try to comment on a whole lot of it, and we're going to get a little serious right now. A little trigger warning, we're going to be talking about a bit of racism to a certain extent. You'll see. So if that's not going to be great for you, you can move on, but yeah. I'm not going to comment a whole lot when this book talks about its Cherokee references, because the book does not do them well. It is just not done respectfully. I thought the authors were part Cherokee themselves when I was a teenager, so I thought that gave them a free pass to be able to integrate the Cherokee elements in this book into it. Because I'm like, well, if you're a part of the culture, then it's okay. But when I did a quick Google search, and I mean it was really quick, like I only clicked on 2 or 3 links, even on the front page. None of them said if they were Cherokee or not, so I don't know where I got that from. They could be, and it's just not, I just didn't see it. But as an adult, I know that still doesn't give you a free pass, even if you are part of the culture, to be disrespectful about it or try to intertwine it with a bunch of other things. You'll see that later. But yeah, my little disclaimer that I wrote for myself is Cherokee ancestry and lore most of the time is fairly disrespectfully written in this book, and I will try to refrain from talking too much about it since I am not of that culture and I'm not educated enough to make good commentary on what is right and wrong about it. So for people who read this book and notice I'm skipping those parts, that is why. And for people that want to read this book for shits and giggles, know that that is in there and it might be insulting to some people. So with that, we're just going to go straight into chapter 2. And it starts out with some drama. Yeah, you're literally picking up where you left off, and drama ensues like right after she leaves the bathroom. So, moving on, she runs into Heath in the parking lot, and Heath is just kind of babbling to her, being like, hey babe, why are you angry at me, that kind of thing. And he kind of admits to cheating on her. Well, she's pissed. She looks at him, and he notices that she has the mark and realizes that she's a vampire. And I wrote, and bless his soul, he was supportive about it. Honey, Heath, you need somebody who's supportive of you, not the other way around. Zoe has enough support in this book. Anyway, and Heath's friends hear him say that she's a vampire and start being dicks about it. Yeah, she completely, I admit, overreacts. Even her internal dialogue says that she overreacts. And she does this weird vampire glare thing that scares the tar out of the three guys. But Zoe really doesn't seem to give a fuck about anyone but her. And isn't sorry about it. Honestly, I can't even with the start of this chapter. So she scares the crap out of the boys. They pedal to the metal, and Heath falls off the back of the truck. You know, you think this would make, like, de-escalate the situation, and that she would say, sorry, I don't know what's gotten into me, I've just been a really bad day. Not really, no. We get very uncomfortable. And by uncomfortable, I mean we now got a weird sexual, like, scene out of nowhere as Zoe helps him up. You might be thinking, how the hell is it sexual to pick somebody up off the ground if they fall off the bed of a truck? Well, and the reason that she's sexually attracted to him right now isn't because she suddenly decided she loved cheating boys. No, it's because he scratched himself and there's blood present. Later, much later, this book will explain how the act of drinking blood is weirdly sexy time-like. This is why she wants to hump a tree stump for this dude's bloody scrape. And thinking about how if humans worked like this, then that means every time we would, like, see a good dish of pasta or a sandwich, and then you would suddenly want to bone it. Like, you just want to be like, oh yeah, this is a good sandwich. Yeah. Want to go to the bedroom? Me and the sandwich wanna. Anyway, I'm done with that. So, all that happens in about a few pages, and she ends up running away from the situation because she has no idea what's going on, really, which that's fair. That is fair. But then after this, we go straight into her home life, and it's kind of weird. Her mom's reaction to her mark is not great. It is, well, I'll let you be the judge of this real quick. I swallowed hard. Mama, I used the name I used to call her back in the day before she married John. I need your help. I don't know whether it was the unexpected use of Mama or if something in my voice touched an old piece of mom intuition she still had somewhere inside her. But the eyes she lifted immediately from the book were soft and filled with concern. What is it, baby? She began, and then her words seemed to freeze on her lips as her eyes found the mark on my forehead. Oh, God, what have you done now? My heart started to hurt again. Mom, I didn't do anything. This is something that happened to me, not because of me. It's not my fault. Oh, please no, she wailed as if I hadn't said a word. What is your father going to say? Okay, so her mom's reaction is not ideal. You can kind of get this idea that there's kind of like a split between her mom and Zoe and who her mom is entirely. But the thing is that the more you read about this, like, you're supposed to take Zoe's side. You're supposed to be against her mother in the way that she's acting. But the funny thing is Zoe's mother does, in fact, act a lot like Zoe does in being self-centered and judgmental. And it's kind of ironic. I don't think the authors meant that. And if they did, well, why? But again, I don't think it was intentional. It's mostly teen melodrama in the rest of this chapter. It goes on for a while. It's just total holy shit angst things. We're just going to move on to chapter 3, where it gets amped up a little bit more because John comes into the picture. He literally, like, just is like, get behind me, Satan, and that kind of thing. So, yeah, he is highly religious. Just to let you know. We get into the fact that John is part of this group called the People of Faith as this chapter goes on. If you haven't caught that or listened to me saying that he was highly religious, there's another cue that he's highly religious. And we get a lot of dissing on the Christian faith from Zoe. well, after that, we just go into chapter 4, and I'm not even gonna, like, read anything or even look at it, because this book, like, not book, this chapter literally is just her sneaking out her window. That's it. She sneaks out her window to go to Grandma Redbird's house. You can forget about her parents. You can forget about Kayla. You can forget pretty much about Heath at this point, too. They are just blimps in the night. We get to chapter 5, and this starts with explaining how sick Zoe is getting while she looks for her grandmother. I admit this part sounds really worrying, and it gives you the faint idea that maybe something bad will happen to Zoe. You know it really won't because, you know, it's that far in the book, but you do get the idea of her suffering a bit and struggling. This is the only time she really struggles in the book, by the way. So during this, Zoe starts hallucinating about drums and wind, and there's a lot of talk about Cherokee ancestors talking to Zoe. Again, not gonna comment this too much. Essentially, all this scares her. She runs, even though she's highly sick, and she trips and she cracks her head on the ground and knocks herself out cold for the second time that day, which is not great. Like, that's not good for you at all. But yeah, she wakes up fairly quickly, but is somehow outside her body and looking down at herself. And this is how she chooses to perceive this situation. It was incredibly weird to look down on myself. I wasn't scared, but I should be, shouldn't I? Didn't this mean I was dead? Maybe I'd be able to see the Cherokee ghost better now. Even that thought didn't scare me. Actually, instead of being afraid, it was more like I was an observer, as if none of this could really touch me. Kind of like those girls who have sex with everyone and think that they're not going to get pregnant or a really nasty STD that eats your brains and stuff. Well, we'll see in 10 years, won't we? What the fuck is that? What is that? Like, did you even have to comment on the fact, like, on the STD thing? There was no reason to bring up other people's sexual habits again, Zoe. Leave people's sex lives alone. It's so annoying. Like, she does it a lot, trust me. Whew. And I'm also trying to stall because my next notes are all about having an issue with the goddess Nyx herself in the scene. I have an issue. What? Shocking. I have issues with the fact that the goddess Nyx is a Greek goddess. She's Greek. Granted, she does say a bunch of other names that she goes by in this book. I'm not even going to read them because I can't pronounce them. But that's beside the point. She says there's a lot of different personifications of her, a lot of different names for her, and I feel like that's just a cop-out to do what they're about to do. And that is, she comes into scene and she's portrayed in Cherokee garb. So is using Cherokee language, like she uses the Cherokee word for daughter. I cannot pronounce it, I'm not gonna try. No. I find it kind of funny that Nyx says she has given Zoe the magic blood of ancient wise people, as well as insight. And I'm sitting here like, what's the insight here? The entire time, this teenager doesn't know fuck for all. Like, okay, so enough with Nyx, honestly. I really don't like her character. It's just whatever. We end this chapter by this. Zoe Redbird, daughter of night, I name you my eyes and ears in the world today. A world where good and evil are struggling to find balance. But I'm 16, I can't even parallel park. How am I supposed to know how to be your eyes and ears? She just smiled serenely. You are old beyond your years, Zoe. Believe in yourself and you will find a way. But remember, darkness does not always equate to evil, just as light does not always bring good. Then the goddess Nyx, the ancient personification of night, leaned forward and kissed me on my head, and for the third time that day, I blacked out. Okay, so here we are at chapter 6. We finally get to meet Grandma Redbird, who Zoe is very grateful to see, obviously. This is a look at her grandma, this being one of the first things she says to Zoe. Okay, so, you're safe, little Redbird. You're safe. My head hurts. I reached up and felt the place on my head that was tight and sore. My fingers found the prick of stitches. It should. You scared 10 years of my life from me. Grandma rubbed the back of my hand gently. All that blood. She shuddered and then shook her head and smiled at me. How about you promise not to do that again? Promise, I said. You found me bloody and unconscious, little bird. Grandma brushed the hair back from my forehead, her fingers lingering lightly on my mark. And so pale that your dark crescent seemed to glow against your skin. I know you needed to be taken to the house tonight, which is exactly what I did. Oh, well, coincidence. Huh, I got where I needed to go without actually having to do it myself or write about it in general. Anyway, she chuckled and and the mischievous sparkle in her eyes made her look like a little girl. I called your mother to tell her that I was returning you to the house of night, and I had to pretend that my cell phone cut out so I could hang up on her. I'm afraid she's not happy with either of us. I grinned back at Grandma Redbird. Hee hee. Mom was mad at her too. Okay, so yeah, sure, whatever, whatnot. Okay, act like Zoe's mom is being ridiculous, even though her daughter just like got marked and is being turned into a vampire and crawled out her window and ran away from home. And then like she just gets a call saying that Zoe's smashed her noggin on a rock and is at the house tonight. Like, I feel like if that was my mom or anyone's mom, she would be highly upset and highly, like, emotional about the whole thing. But sure, let's bond over dissing on this adult woman who's probably panicking as we speak. Because that's what we should do. All these women suck. I swear. Also, here, I gotta scroll this down. Also, how the hell did this old lady get Zoe to the house of night? Which I didn't actually think of until, like, I didn't think of that. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that's true, that's right. How did this elderly woman who is, like, I always assumed she was, like, 80, but, like, how did this elderly woman pick Zoe up and bring her to the house of night? Like, did she just, like, have immense, like, Hulk, like, Mr. Incredible strength and, like, flop her over her shoulder like a bag of potatoes and just carried her all the way back down this, like, giant hill she was walking up and stuffed her in the car and, like, took her to the house of night? But, yeah, so Zoe gets up and she finds out that her crescent moon is different now that Nyx has smashed her lips all over it. Just, I love that description of that. Why is it filled in? Yeah, it's because Nyx picked her and she's special. Get over it, okay? She's not a Mary Sue, okay? She's not. Okay, so as we round out this chapter, we end up meeting one more character that I purposely left out from our character card in the beginning, just because she mostly shows up later after chapter 7. This is Neferet, and I'm so sorry if I'm not pronouncing her name correctly. This is the way I'm going to be pronouncing it through the entire thing, so if it's wrong, it's wrong. She enters the story like this. Her voice was amazing. Even before I looked up from my reflection, I knew she would be unique and incredible. I was right. She was movie star beautiful. Barbie beautiful. I've never seen anyone up close who was so perfect. She had huge almond-shaped eyes that were a deep mossy green. Her face was almost a perfect heart, and her skin was that kind of flawless creaminess that you see on TV. Her hair was a deep red. Not that horrible carrot top orange red or the washed out blonde red, but a deep glossy auburn that fell in heavy waves well past her shoulders. Hey, no hate to redheads, okay? Okay. Her body was, well, perfect. She wasn't thin like the freak girls who puked and starved themselves into what they thought was Paris Hilton chic. That's high. Yeah, okay, Paris. This woman's body was perfect because she was strong, but curvy, and she had great boobs. I wish I had great boobs. You probably saw the main flaw in that paragraph is that the entire time she's describing this beautiful woman, she's putting down other women while she does it. And I continue to want to look at PC Cass and Kristen Cass and be like, why? Why do you keep doing this? Why did you write Zoe like this? She's supposed to be a loving main character that we're supposed to almost self-insert ourselves into. We're riding this entire ride on through the eyes of Zoe, and she's this judgmental bitch. I would really love to know the thought process on this, or if this is just how you thought teenagers were gonna act. And to make more context to that is, Neferet explains that when you enter the house of night, you are technically a new person, you are new you, you're starting on a new life, so you're legally allowed to change your name. Now, mind you, just a reminder, you're asking 15, 16-year-old kids, teenagers, to pick a new name out for themselves for the rest of their life. So that's gonna go well. I'm sure no one's gonna pick something they're gonna regret later. Foreshadowing, foreshadowing. So as soon as Zoe chooses her name, like I said, Neferet is asking her if she remembers how she became unconscious. And as soon as Zoe tries to explain how she became unconscious and seeing Nyx and stuff like that, she gets like zapped with this like Spidey Nyx super sense that tells her to shut the hell up. Which, of course, makes you suspicious of Neferet right off the bat. Like, as the chapter keeps going and going and going, Neferet is put on a pedestal, and Zoe continues to talk about how much she feels safe and comforted and how motherly Neferet is, and she's doing this in this chapter. It's repeated and repeated and repeated how good Neferet makes her feel, and it's almost as if the authors are trying to gloss over the fact that they foreshadowed this weird Nyx super sense telling them that Neferet is bad and don't tell her this information. It's like an overcompensation. Like, you dropped the line, but now you're pretending you never did. And it just makes me more suspicious of Neferet instead of the opposite, if you get what I'm putting down there. Through 14. So, yeah. We meet most of the characters that are just reoccurring in this bulk of chapters. Essentially, really no new ones are introduced after this point. So we got Neferet, who we saw last chapter. Well, she was introduced. I just forgot about her, to be honest. She's totally not sus. Trust me, she's not sus at all. And then we'll have Stevie Ray, who's going to be the equivalent of a golden retriever to Zoe. Not always in a good way. We got Damien, who you will see is a complete gay stereotype, so I'm going to warn you about that. Then we have Erin, who you'll probably forget is even in there most of the time because she's only there to be goddamn annoying. Then we have Shanae or Shanae. I'm going to say Shanae. If it's wrong, I apologize. She's also completely forgettable and only there to be the black girl. Then we have Aphrodite. I almost actually just forgot she even existed. She's honestly my favorite character of this entire series. You'll probably see it if I continue to do these reviews. But in this book, she's completely trashed on, and it is just kind of really, like, all over the place. Her character's kind of inconsistently inconsistent. Then we have the last main guy who really matters, and it's Eric, spelled with a K, who just is going to be another almost boyfriend through the entire thing. Trust me, it's exhausting. Okay, so here we are, chapter 7. We're going to dive right into it, and the first thing we end up talking about is cats. Apparently, the vampires have, like, cat familiars, where the cat, like, chooses you to be their special person. There's cats all over the house at night, and I guess fuck you if you're allergic. But yeah, cats choose their people, and you get to meet Neferet's cat, which makes Zoe feel even more special since it usually hates people. But this cat, Skylar, it adores Zoe, of course. Such a shining beacon of light in this darkness, isn't she? Also, this is a segue into talking about how Neferet has special powers, like all high priestesses do. So, apparently not all the vampires in this book have special powers. Only ones that are handpicked by Nyx the goddess will get special abilities. Everyone else are just plebs, apparently. Trust me, Neferet's roster of powers make no sense whatsoever. She can talk to animals, but she's also a healer, but she also has the power of, not premonition, but intuition. She just knows things. She's all-knowing, apparently. It feels like Nyx put her hand into a hat and drew out two or three random-ass things and was like, yeah, here you go, that's fine. Here you go. Personally, my theory was that the authors forgot between the two of them what Neferet's real powers were and had to, like, work it in somehow. Like, it was like a mistake that was written in there, and they just kept working with it and working with it, and it was like, that, we're good. Nobody's going to notice. Well, if that's the case, I noticed. And if it wasn't a mistake and you did it intentionally, why? Please tell me why. And this is where we jump into straight up frickin' shenanigans and I really, even as a teenager, hated this part. As an adult, I hated it with a new vengeance because now I can see it for what it is. But yeah, she ends up hearing a laugh, like a giggle, and she kind of looks, and there's a hallway off to the side, and I still to this day don't know why, but a voice, like, comes to Zoe. Here, let me look at it real quick. Yeah, a voice comes out and just says her name, and, like, it just is like, Zoe, and goes down the hallway. It's implied that this voice is Nyx calling her down that hallway, and I don't know why. You're about to see why. I don't know why, but just leave that in the back of your head that Nyx has called her down this hallway. Because she ends up following it because, of course, you always should listen to voices telling you to do something in your head. She ends up spotting 2 students in the hallway, and it is a girl trying to give a guy a blowjob. Thank you, Nix. I didn't realize you just wanted everyone to know these people's business. Then again, they are in a hallway, but whatever. I digress. Okay, so we find out this girl is Aphrodite, our main antagonist throughout this book, and several others, honestly. And then the guy is Eric, which you find out much later on for some reason. It was like a slow burn thing that didn't need to be a slow burn. Essentially, Aphrodite in this scene is sexually assaulting Eric. Eric's telling her to stop, and she's continuing to be on him. It's very uncomfortable to read. I understand the authors are trying to set up Aphrodite as to be this mean girl, this bad person, but I really wish they would have chosen some other way to do it. Like, as the book goes on and you actually have an interaction between Aphrodite and Zoe, I really wish that was the first time those two had a spat and, like, were introduced to each other, because that would make it just makes a lot more sense. That, whatever. I really wish that point was the point where they met each other and instantly didn't like each other, instead of having this behind it. Also, this is a teen novel, and the way that this scene is played out is just that Aphrodite is a bitch and Eric is an angel, and not actually addresses the situation for what it is. So Zoe just continues this entire time calling Aphrodite a slut and a hoe and a bitch, but doesn't really think farther essentially than that. And then Eric is never, it's more of a laughable thing. Like, they laugh it off instead of actually treating it like it was an assault. That's as far as I'm going to go for that. So they go into the girls' dorm, and this is how Zoe is getting along with the other girls, like, straight off the bat. So, this starts out with Neferet speaking. Ladies, this is Zoe Redbird. Greet her and welcome her to the House of Night. For a second, I didn't think anyone was going to say anything, and I wanted to die of new kid mortification. Then a girl stood up from among the middle of a group that was clustered around one of the TVs. She was a tiny blonde and darn near perfect. Actually, she reminded me of a young version of Sarah Jessica Parker, who I don't like, by the way. She's just so annoying and unnaturally perky. Hi, Zoe. Welcome to your new home. The SJP look-alike smile was warm and genuine. She was clearly making an effort to make eye contact instead of gawking at my darkened-in mark. Instantly, I felt bad for making a negative comparison about her. I'm Aphrodite, she says. Aphrodite? Okay, maybe I hadn't been too hasty in my comparison. How could anyone normal choose Aphrodite as a name? Please, talk about delusions of grandeur. I plastered a smile on my face, though, and said a bright, Hi, Aphrodite! So right off the back, also, she's having all these negative thoughts about Aphrodite, even though she, at this current point, is being nice, and also, Zoe has no idea who this girl is. So, that's great. I just think Zoe hates other girls in general. I think I already stated that, but I just really think Zoe hates other girls. They're being nice to each other, at least while Neferet can see them. Then Aphrodite has this, weird dialogue where she's just like, yeah, this place is cool because I'm cool. I make this place happen. Which is a little weird, honestly. I'm like, who really talks like that? Even Zoe's a little like, who talks like that? But, again, it's a YA novel. Honestly, the authors try everything in their power to make you hate Aphrodite as a character, which so far they're doing a good idea. But it's also funny because in writing her like this, and I think we'll notice this more and more as I go through the book and even go through the series, is that Aphrodite becomes more of a 3D character than any other character in this series. Zoe is written as this kind of special character. That's all that she really has, is that she's special. All Zoe's friends are kind of one-hit wonders or one-note wonders, and they're just there to compliment Zoe. Whereas Aphrodite, as an antagonist, is continually actually, her character is added on to, and she actually is the only one in the series who changes as a character. So, mind you, this is me going ahead a bit, but yeah, it's just ironic that that's what happens. You want us to hate this character so much that you spent so much time writing this character that she ends up being the only 3D personality character in the story. So, I just thought I'd mention that. But we go right from that little, like, catty moment in the hallway to her meeting Stevie Ray, who is just a straight-up cowboy-loving Okie stereotype. Like, everything in her side of the room is, like, Oklahoma, country, cowboy boots. She even has a cowboy hat and is wearing cowboy boots and stuff like that. She's kind of endearing at first, but also highly annoying. It's very obvious that the authors tried too hard, again, kind of like with Neferet, to make you like Stevie when you didn't really need to. She's supposed to be like this all-around good girl, this like sweetie. She's pretty much another version of Zoe, except not as mean. And Okie, apparently. Oh, I do actually have another note about this chapter. I thought I was completely done. I was going to move on to chapter 9. But apparently there's a line I want to read out here. And it's Zoe's description and thoughts on Stevie Ray. Which, if I remember correctly, this is like, this is supposed to be your best friend, isn't it now? Oh, I have a gel in here. I looked at her. I mean, really looked at her. She was wearing a pair of honest-to-God Roper jeans? Roper? I don't know what those are. You know, the kind those ag kids wear? I think she means agricultural kids. Wear that are way too tight and have no back pockets. Girls never have back pockets, almost. Anyway, I'm getting beside the point. How anyone could think no back pockets and tightness was cute, I'd honestly never understand. Stevie Ray was totally skinny, and the jeans even made her butt look wide. I knew before I looked at a girl's feet what she'd be wearing. Cowboy boots. I glanced down and said, yep, brown leather, flat-heeled, pointy-toed cowboy boots. I think we all know what those look like, Zoe. Tucked into her country fried jeans, I said country fried. It's country fried. This is not great for dyslexia. Jeans was a black, long-sleeve cotton blouse that had the expensive look of something you'd find at Saks? Or, okay, we're just going to move on from whatever these brand names are. Versus the cheaper see-through shirts that overpriced Abercrombie tries to make us believe aren't slutty. When she glanced over at me, I saw that she had double-pierced ears with little silver hoops in them. She turned and held out one hand. She just hands the blouse over and stuff like that. They're just, so they're getting their uniform together, which apparently their uniform is just like a sweater they have to wear, and then they can wear anything else, so that's great. But the last sentence that she says before this, page rounds up is, she turned. And I decided that even though the country look wasn't for me, she was kind of cute with her mixture of hayseed and cheek. This is supposed to be your best friend, and you're sitting here, I don't understand. You're calling her butt wide. You're also saying who, would wear these types of pants. Even though if I remember right, if these are the pants I'm thinking of, they actually were fairly popular back then. Like, most pants in 2007 were tight and had no back pockets. It was just the look, so I don't know why you're dissing on her. Zoe, are you wearing skinny jeans? As I said, this is very popular in 2007. What are you wearing? Can we judge that? I'd love to. Whew, and then we move on to chapter 9. If you notice, I'm talking a lot about these chapters. There is just a lot packed into it, and all these chapters are, short, so it's, a lot. This is just lunchtime, essentially. This chapter is devoted to lunchtime. The goddess Nyx is explained a little bit more in this chapter. And it kind of makes it sound like the House of Night is running a cult. So, okay, I'm trying to just, not pause, but, I'm trying to stall because I really don't want to talk about her friends. But we will. We sadly will. Whew. So, yep. She comes in the cafeteria with Stevie Ray. They sit down at a table, and Stevie Ray introduces Zoe to all the friends that Stevie Ray already has. It's kind of awkward, though, because the first friend that she gets introduced to is Aaron. Zoe immediately disses on the fact that Aaron is pretty and blonde. Go figure. And, again, like I said before, this is all Aaron's character is besides being annoying. She interjects almost in every other sentence. Every time there's exposition, she somehow has something to say that's completely off topic. So you almost have to reread the page over and over again to figure out what was being said. And you have to, cut out everything Aaron says to make it make sense. It's highly annoying. It will give you a headache if you try to read this. Guarantee. And then we have actually a passage from the book itself to explain Damien, which I'm already mad about as a gay person. So, let's just get into this and rip off the Band-Aid. And this is our token guy in our... This is Stevie Ray, by the way. And this is our token guy in our group, Damien. But he's gay, so I don't really think he counts as a guy. Instead of getting pissed at Stevie Ray, Damien looked serene and unruffled. Actually, since I'm gay, I think I should count for 2 guys instead of just 1. I mean, in me, you get the male point of view, and you don't have to worry about me wanting to touch your boobies. This is boobies at the age of 16. Anyway, he had a smooth face that was totally zit-free and dark brown hair and eyes that reminded me of a baby deer. Actually, he was cute, not in the overly girly way so many teenage guys are when they decide to come out and tell everyone that what everyone already knew. Well, excuse me, this is such a weirdly written passage. Well, everyone except their typical clueless and or in denial parents. Damien wasn't a swishy girly guy. He was just a cute kid with a likable smile. He was also noticeably trying not to stare at my mark, which I appreciated. As a lesbian, I'm irritated by this gay representation. I hate it. I don't even have to, go... I wish I could make a whole fucking hour-long bullet point list of all the wrong things about this passage. First of all, they had to have a gay guy in this group because Zoe hates girls, and I feel like she would hate girls even more who would like other girls. Actually, there are passages in this book where Zoe actually does kind of hate on girls who like girls. So what am I even talking about? He's not a swishy gay guy. He's not hyper feminine. He's not stereotypical. You're trying to say he's not stereotypical, but you're actually talking about every other gay guy that's written into these young adult novels. These awful pieces of representation that are only there as a stand-in to have a male character in your story, but you still want, them not to be a competitor, a male competitor to, your other romantic interest. That's all this is. Getting a little too angry about it. So we're just going to move on to our other really bad piece of representation. Yeah, you're going to hate this too. We have Shanae, who is their token black friend. That's legit. That's all she's really described as, that she has good hair and she's black. The authors legit choose to call her the African princess and describe her skin tone as cappuccino, which later on they call a different coffee beverage, which is actually a different color. Each coffee beverage they ever say her skin is actually a different color. So, I don't need to tell you how, wrong it is to, use coffee and, chocolate and, stuff like that to describe African-American people, but I've already ranted enough during this. Oh, yeah, I do have a note also that I was really pissed off during this. Guess what? Shanae is also the sassy friend. All I wrote here is, shoot me now. Oh, God, this is the other part that gets me mad. I didn't even want to do this chapter, honestly, because of these friends. The only other thing that I absolutely hate is there's a stupid, dumbass thing where Aaron and Shanae call each other twins. They're not twins, obviously. They say this because they are so similar in taste and personality. I honestly think this is just a scapegoat for not making up dynamic enough characters for the authors. I just think that they realized they needed another character to round out the numbers, so they made Aaron. And that's it. Yeah, there's a passage I was going to read out of here. It's so exhausting and back and forth and makes no sense. I really don't want to read it. But, the context is that Zoe explained her mark and just said she hit her head and thinks that that's why her mark's filled in. And this is how this group of friends talks. Shanae huffed. I was hoping it was going to be something more interesting, something good and gossipy. Sorry, I muttered. Careful, twin, Aaron said to Shanae, jerking her head at the Dark Daughters. You're starting to sound like you should sit over at that table. Shanae's face twisted. I couldn't be caught undead with those bitches. You're confusing the crap out of Zoe. Damien gave a long-suffering sigh. I'll explain, proving once again how valuable I am to this group. Penis or no penis? Don't know why. He constantly references his genitals. I don't know why. I really wish you wouldn't use the P word, Stevie Ray said, especially when I'm trying to eat. I like it, Aaron chimed in. If anyone called things what they are, we'll be a lot less confused. I'm not even fucking going to finish her sentence because I hate it. Disgusting, gross, crude. I'm with you, twin. I mean, if we talk, yeah, like literally it's this back and forth, back and forth. I completely forgot what they were originally talking about, and I just glanced at it. Ugh. Yeah. Essentially, that goes on for like 2 pages. Just this back and forth, no one actually explaining shit. What they're actually trying to explain here is the Dark Daughters, which is like a, it's like a yearbook, cheerleader, like popular girl type of club to be in. You get handpicked to be in it. Aphrodite is the leader of it because she's being groomed to be High Priestess by Neferet. Big shock. There is the Dark Sons as well, which is the male version of it, but nobody gives a fuck about the Dark Sons. They're literally described as arm candy in this, so that's not sexist at all, but whatever. We go into chapter 10 after this, and it's Zoe whining about how she doesn't want to be in the Dark Daughters ritual. She was invited to this by Aphrodite, and she kind of has to go because this weird thing where like Neferet told Aphrodite to invite her, so Aphrodite invited her, but since Neferet had the original idea, Zoe's kind of obligated to go because Neferet is her mentor. I honestly don't know why we had to have it that complicated, but we did. She keeps saying how she doesn't want to go because she's not like other girls. She just can't do this. She's not pretty and special like they are. Plus, they're bitches, apparently. The book does show that they are bitches, but that's beside the point. Zoe's kind of one, too, if you haven't noticed. She would fit right in. It's a bit about really bad representation, and I believe it's a part where Zoe, like, is talking about how she hates homophobes because there's exposition that Damien's family kicked him out and don't want to deal with him because he's gay. I'm not even going to read it because I'm already done with that. Essentially, she just disses on girls who like girls and acts like bisexuals or other sexualities don't exist. So that's not how you do representation, honey. We don't like it here. Excuse me. We get chapter 11 right here, and we can't have Zoe get ready for her first day of school without her being bitchy. So yeah, this is like really just opening up with her going to class. So this is the next day, obviously. I kind of missed that in my notes, but yeah. Anyway, the mark somehow okay. Excuse me. She's looking into the mirror, getting ready, doing her hair, and this is what I'm talking about, her being bitchy. Anyway, the mark somehow made my eyes look even bigger and darker. I lined them with smoky black shadow that had little flecks of silver in it. Not heavily like those loser girls who think that plastering black eyeliner makes them look cool. Yeah, right. They look like scary raccoons. I smudged the line, added mascara, brushed some bronzing powder over my face, and put on lip gloss to hide the fact that I've been nervously picking at my lips. Oh, cool. You have a nervous habit like everybody else does. I honestly don't think these authors knew the demographic that this book was being actually produced for. Like, look at this cover. We got some, like, I don't know if it'll pick it up. We got some, like, nice, like, detailing, like, gothic detailing. We got the black. We got, you know, the hot pink. And this character who looks fairly gothy in the front cover. Even the back looks angsty, broody, emo, goth-like. And yet, Zoe herself was always dissing on the emos, the goth, people who use a lot of makeup, the creative types. Hello, did you guys not realize that the people who are mostly going to be reading this book are the emo goth kids? Like, I was totally a mall goth back in this day. So it was very insulting to think I picked up a book that was written for my genre of fashion, and to have her continually diss on it the whole time. It was like, oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Come at me, bro, I guess. Oh god, I do have a note being like, that says like, what the hell? Essentially, as Zoe gets her like schedule after this, like, Stevie Ray just hands it to her. I was like, it was dropped off with all the rest of your stuff because we just know everything here. And her classes consist of vamp, sociology. She gets to pick a creative elective for her second one. It's out of 3 classes. If I remember right, she chooses like drama, Lit 101, gym, Spanish, and equestrian studies, which is horses. I wish I had this schedule in school. Like, this sounds way too easy. kind of gives me the idea that the authors wanted to make this as teen-friendly as possible and didn't want Zoe to struggle at all in anything, including classwork. And trust me, the next few chapters, I'm looking at my notes, really have nothing in them. So, yeah. We're just going to go over them real briefly. We have chapter 12. This one could have just been mixed in with the last chapter, and I still agree with that. Zoe is just going to class. But yeah, that's it for that. Chapter 13, it's just Zoe going to classes and her being exceptionally good at them and liking them all. So she's still going to classes, actually, by this point. And you're going to meet her equestrian studies teacher. And this is how this class opens up. Now tell me if this sounds weird to you. Good evening, I am Lenoba, and this, she pointed at the mare and gave our group a contemptuous look before finishing the sentence, is a horse. Her voice rang against the walls, the black mare blew there through her nose, as if to punctuate her words. And you are my new group of third formers. Each of you has been chosen for my class because we believe you might possibly have an aptitude for riding. The truth is that less than half of you will last the semester, and less than half of those who last will actually develop into decent equestrians. Are there any questions? She didn't pause long enough for anyone to ask anything. Good, then follow me and you shall begin. She turned and marched back to the stable. We followed. So here we meet the hard-ass teacher that no one's supposed to like, but somehow ends up getting charmed by Zoe because she knows how to muck a stall. We find that out later. But I'm going to track back for a second. Okay, just FYI, Zoe is not starting these classes out in the very beginning. It is September, October, as she does reference. She says it is fall. But this is not the first day of class. These other students have been going to class. So why in hell is Lenoba talking like this? Why is she giving this intro? Did this class start right this second? Did they get pulled from other classes to be started in this horse class? But also, I hate when teachers are written like this and are just like, only half of you will even survive this class, and less than that half of that half is going to be good at this. Well, that means you are a shitty teacher, my lass, and you should probably quit or change your teaching style. Nobody needs this hard-ass bitchness in high school or anything, including college. No, this is not how people learn. That's my rant on that, because I really hate teachers like this. Whew, and I also, like, moving on, I have a tendency to forget that Zoe is 16. I know, shocking. It's almost like she's written poorly. But anyway, she is talking to the horse. But what I mean by you forget that she is 16 is when you get to dialogue like this. And trust me, I'm going to frick up this horse's name, because I can never say this name right. Anyway, we're going right into it. That red-headed slug kid must have a death wish, I told Persephone as I returned to her grooming. The mare twitched an ear back at me and blew through her nose. Yep, I knew you'd agree. Want to hear my theory about how my generation could single-handedly wipe out slugs and loser kids from America? She seems receptive, so I launch into my don't procreate with losers speech. This is a conversation or mental level of a 13-year-old, not a 16-year-old. She's also making fun of this student who's, like, really struggling and not having a good time. She references the student quite a bit this day and how he has an argument with the teacher because he fell asleep. He's just not doing good, and she continues to pick on him mentally. She doesn't say anything verbally, but that's beside the point. But back to how she's written, like, it's kind of funny, actually, because in the beginning of this, like, the intro or somewhere around there, PC Cass comments about how her daughter helped make sure that they both sounded like teens while writing this book. And I'm sorry to say, neither did a good job with it. Have neither of them met a teen before, or did they just skip those years in their life? It's kind of hard to say. Okay, so we're actually going to go into part 3 because my camera has not efficiently died yet, so I can keep going for today. This is just the next 7 chapters, 15 through 22. No noteworthy characters, like I said, show up here. We're about halfway through this book at this point. So that's nice. That's really all I have to say for the intro of this. Besides the fact, like I said before, there's a lot of, like, rituals in here, and we're gonna get into that fairly quickly. So let me just highlight this and move on. Okay, so we have chapter 15, which I do have a lot of text for because quite a bit happens in this. Because this is Stevie Ray and Zoe walking to this full moon ritual. It's kind of interesting, though, because they start out talking about death, essentially, on their way to this ritual. Yep, a student has died off camera in one of Stevie Ray's classes on this first day of class for Zoe. It was a character that Zoe saw earlier in the day and had like 2 classes with, but she didn't really know. Her name was Elizabeth, if I remember correctly. It's kind of, I guess, a thing that new vampire kids can die. It happens. They make it seem like it happens fairly often, but later on in this chapter, like not the chapter, but later on in this book itself, it does say that it's odd for students to die in quick succession, because another student does die literally next day. I'm not spoiling anything because let's face it, we're just talking about this crap. So I don't understand which one is it. Do kids die all the time? Or do they not? Because the way it's written in here is that the kids don't get any mourning. They don't get anything besides a quick little like smack on the rump and told to go back to class and ignore it. Like, and just a reminder that this could happen to anyone at any time, so just deal with it. Which I don't feel like is an adequate way of dealing with grief and loss in teenagers. Whew, it really is not. My theory on the why it's, my theory on why it is written this way, though, because I do have a theory on it, is that the authors really didn't want to talk too much about the characters' emotional states. They just wanted to have these events happen and be damned the actual like emotional consequences of them, or emotional like changes in their character and how they would feel about this. So Zoe is pretty much told to get over it and just brush it off, and what she does, which I feel is not the best way. Like, it would have been nicer to have more sadness or more of an emotional development for Zoe herself in this section. Okay, but enough of the dead kid, because we're going to move on just as fast as this book does, and within like a few paragraphs, we're just going right into this full moon ritual, which I'm probably going to rely heavily on my notes for this one, because it's a lot of text, it's a long chapter, and I don't really want to read it all. It gets really repetitive also later on. Essentially, this ritual happens during the full moon. Oh god, shocker, I know. It's all for Nyx. It's all for her. Everyone comes in, they get, like, anointed. They all stand in a circle, and there's candles, and dancing, and poetry being read. Yeah, it's kind of awkward. For me, who's not religious, I find this really weird. The House of Night has taken pieces of Cherokee, Greek, and other religious and cultural aspects and slammed it all into one ritual. They also push this narrative that the Christian belief system is awful, which I am leaving my opinions to myself. But they also display a lot of similar aspects. They even make comments on how the people of faith want to control everyone, but completely miss the point about their own religion controlling the way that they act and treat the world around them. Also, the House of Night does not seem to respect anyone else's religion. Like, there is no other option when you get to this school. It's either worship Nyx or bust. Actually, I don't really know that. It's all glossed over if anyone else has any religious beliefs. It just implies that everyone gets marked by Nyx and they all become like her servants or whatever. I did write, is there not Muslim students, Jewish, Catholic? Are students not allowed anything else and have to drop their belief system regardless of how they feel just to be put at this school? Fuck them, I guess, because we're not actually going to talk about that. We're going to spend like 5 to 6 pages talking about this ritual that is repeated, I think, up to 4 other times in this novel. So I'm just going to gloss over it. But essentially, a quick rundown of it is Neferet invokes the 5 elements: air, fire, water, earth, and spirit. How creative. Zoe can literally feel the elements as they're being talked about. Later, we find that this is, what a shock, a special thing only Zoe feels. Because, of course, she wasn't special enough as it is. turns out that she has elemental powers. All 5 of them, which has never happened before in the history of this universe. Color me shocked. The only other comments I have about this whole ritual is it is extremely cult-like, like drink the Kool-Aid type of thing. It goes on for much too long compared to all the other events that happen in this book. Like I said, it goes on for like 6 pages. Well, most of these chapters are like 6 to 7 pages, so, Whew. But yeah, they just invoke this, invoke the elements with some candles. They say some words. They blow out the candles. There's some like wine drinking actually, which in the year 2022, when this is being recorded, kind of gave me a creepy cringe factor because they're all drinking out of one wine glass. But it's like the entire school of like hundreds of students. So I'm running to like they never specify refilling this wine glass. So is everyone kind of like sticking their tongue in it and calling it good, so everyone could get some? I don't know. I think I hyper focused on that bit a little too much. And so, did you like that rundown of their ritual? Did you like it? Did you find it interesting? Did you? Did you? Good! Because if you didn't, fuck you. Because in chapter 16, we go over it again. Yeah, that's why I didn't say too much about it. We are doing the same exact thing that happened in the last chapter in this chapter, except with the Dark Daughters and Dark Sons. I kind of wish there was actually something padding these 2 chapters, like, essentially Zoe has to miss dinner to go do this Dark Daughters thing, and I really wish that they would have actually had her go to dinner so that these 2 chapters aren't slapped right, like, next to each other, because you're going from one ritual to the exact same ritual, and it's boring. Let's just face it, it's boring. Okay, so one of the characters we straight off meeting after Eric is Aphrodite, and this is actually why I love Aphrodite, even though her character is poorly written in the very beginning of this book. I'll be leading the ritual, of course, so I'm going to be too busy to hold your hand through it. Okay, I should have just kept my mouth shut, but she's wearing on my last nerve. By the way, Aphrodite, before this, has given Zoe a dress to wear, and just, that's it. That's really all she did. She just said, I expected you not to be dressed properly for this, so here's this black dress of mine you can wear. That's the context for this. Okay, so I should have kept my mouth shut, but she's wearing on my last nerve. Look, Aphrodite, I don't need you to hold my hand. Her eyes narrow and I braced myself for another psycho girl scene. Instead, she smiled a totally non-nice smile that made her look like a snarling dog. Not that I was calling her a bitch, but the analogy seemed scarily accurate. Of course you don't need your hand held. You'll just breeze right through this little ritual like you breeze through everything else. Here, I mean, after all, you are Neferet's new favorite. So, I love Aphrodite in this scene because she calls out what everyone is thinking. She's aware of what the authors are doing. They're making her this special, special, I get everything handed to me character. And like right after this, Zoe's like, oh no, it hasn't been a breeze for me. I have had to struggle. And I'm like, where? Bitch, where? Show me. You've just been whining about how you just want to, like, I don't know, be normal. But you have had, like, no struggle. I didn't even struggle with freaking class or horse class when you were, like, mucking out poop. You were, like, the stellar student even for that. But it's interesting also that the authors are kind of aware of what they did with Zoe's character, but are, like, I don't know, laughing it off almost. Like, I don't even understand what they're doing if they're aware of this. And Zoe puts on the dress that, Aphrodite so nicely gave her because she could have just, like, let Zoe walk in with her t-shirt and jeans while everyone's dressed up real nice. But no, she didn't. She didn't. The dress becomes a point of contention later, trust me. That's why I'm emphasizing it. Haha, foreshadowing. Look, I've done it better than them. Anyway, okay. And then the ritual actually starts, and honestly, all I wrote in my notes is, I swear to God, Zoe, someone needs to sit you down and tell you to be nice to people. So we already know we're in for some slut shaming. Here we go. Okay, the music was disturbing. It had a deep pulsating beat that was ancient as well as modern. Like someone had mixed one of those nasty booty humping songs with a tribal mating dance. Excuse me, I like those nasty booty humping songs. Especially Boots with the Fur. Excellent. Anyway, beside the point. And then, much to my shock, Aphrodite began to dance her way around the circle. Yes, I suppose you could say that she was hot. I mean, she had a good body, and she moved like Catherine Zeta-Jones in Chicago. I haven't watched that, by the way. but somehow it didn't work for me. And I don't mean because I'm not gay, even though I'm not gay. Thank you, Zoe, for reiterating. We already know you hate women, so trust me, no one thought you were gay. It didn't work because it seemed like a crude imitation of Neferet's dance to She Walks in Beauty. If this music was a poem, it would be more like Some Hoe Grinds Her Booty. Anyway, Jesus Christ. Of course you diss on Aphrodite regardless of what she's doing. She was actually, even though she was being cold and definitely kind of like, I hate you, but I'm being nice because people are watching, she still was at least feigning being nice. She gave you a goddamn dress, which Aphrodite, you find out, is relatively rich. That dress probably costs money. Besides the dress costing money and Aphrodite not really having done anything outwardly to Zoe yet, we also have me complaining in this notes about how you can appreciate and acknowledge someone of the same gender's body and it not being gay. Stop fucking making these slight passive-aggressive gay comments. Okay, thank you. That's kind of what I had in there. I guess I got more angry about that line than I thought I did. But, you know, she feels the elements when they're called. Yada, yada, yada. The only other things I pointed out, because they actually are relevant to a note that I have later on, is that Zoe notices that there's incense being burned. But these incense aren't normal incense. She comments on the fact that they're pot incense, and she bitches about people that smoke pot, essentially. It's whatever. But remember, these incense are being burned, and Zoe does not say anything about them outwardly or does not leave the environment. She just continues to sniff this pot weed smell. Also, at the very end of this ritual, Zoe gets handed a thing of wine. She takes a drink just like in the last ritual because there's no fucking differences really besides the pot smoke and Neferet humping the air. And not Neferet, oh my god, Aphrodite, I mean, these names are irrelevant apparently. Zoe ends up really liking the wine and almost downs the whole thing, and Aphrodite gets all smirky about it. Turns out there is blood in this wine that Aphrodite was supposed to tell Zoe, but she neglected to, because she was hoping that Zoe would be disgusted by it, but then she got even, she started laughing, Aphrodite started laughing about it because she realized that Zoe ended up liking it, and this is irregular for vampires of her age. That's a lot. You can kind of forget about it later because it's just going to be brought up again. Oh god. Oh god. Okay, I know what chapter this is coming up to, and it's a lot. Get ready for this story to punch you on one cheek and then turn around and punch you in the other. This whole chapter is a goddamn mess. Absolute mess. This is chapter 17. I do have bunches of spots where I'm reading out of this, so get ready for that. This honestly is on a speed round for chapters. So first, Zoe has run away from the ritual and found her own cat and names it Nala. Yeah, there's this wall, she hears a cat, she rescues a cat from a tree, and turns out this is a cat she had a dream about, and yeah, gasp, she has a cat now. And then before you can even think about the cat, she happens to see the girl who died earlier in the day. Yeah, she looks down at this wall, and this girl is skittering around on the ground or whatever it is. But she recognizes her as Elizabeth who died. And gasp, when she turns to Zoe, she has red eyes. And she looks like hell. She smells like hell. Do you want to know more about Elizabeth, the undead dead girl? Well, fuck you, because too bad. And Nala scares this girl away, and before Zoe can even think, before you can even register what just happened, we get the appearance of Kayla and Heath. Where did they come from? The road on the other side of the wall, actually. Okay, so this is where the chapter slows down just vaguely. Just vaguely. These two goons are drunk and high, and they're here to bust Zoe out. Which is stupid in the first place. I don't know why they're trying to bust her out on foot after walking all these miles, but whatever. We also have this gem of an interaction that happens very soon after they show up. Let me go find it, because I don't like reading out of this thing. Okay, so here we are. He scooted around till he was on his belly and then leaned down to offer his hands to Kayla. Giggling, she grabbed them and let him haul her up on the top of the wall with us. And it was while she was giggling and he was hauling that I saw it, the unmistakable way Kayla grinned and giggled and blushed at Heath. I knew it as well as I knew I would never be a mathematician. Kayla liked Heath. Okay, not like. She liked Heath. Suddenly, Heath's guilty comment about messing around on me and the party I'd missed made perfect sense. So how's Jared? I asked abruptly, totally stopping Kate Babel's giggles. Okay, I guess, she said, without meeting my eyes. Okay, Jared is Kayla's boyfriend, apparently. You guessed? She moved her shoulders, and I saw that under her very cute leather jacket, she was wearing the tiny little cream lace cami we used to call the boob shirt, because not only did it show a lot of cleavage, but it was the color of skin, so it looked like it was showing even more than it actually was. I don't know, we haven't really talked much the past couple of days or so. She still won't look at me, but she did glance at Heath, who looked clueless, but that was really his only look. So my best friend was going after my boyfriend. They're not together, remember that. Now that pissed me off, and for a second I wished it wasn't such a nice warm night. I wished it was cold and Kayla would freeze her overdeveloped boobs right off. But also, I did point out that the page before this, Zoe states this. Okay, there's no need to forever make fun of my unfortunate ex-infatuation with Leonardo. I glared at him, feeling more like myself than I had in hours. Actually, it's kind of like my unfortunate ex-infatuation with you. Only it didn't last as long, and you didn't make a bunch of cheesy but cool movies. She's talking to Heath here. So, did anyone notice the thing that I just dropped? She calls Heath her boyfriend here, and is like, oh my god, Kayla, how dare you go for my boyfriend? How dare you? But, again, literally, the page before this, she's saying that and he's her ex. This is exhausting and I hate it here. So, of course, this whole interaction between the two of them are colored by the fact that Zoe is upset with Kayla for going after her ex. Oh, and, so you do remember how I put a emphasis on the pot smoke from the Dark Daughters thing and the fact that she's been drinking wine this night. Well, these are all things Zoe has participated in, even if it wasn't her saying that, like she participated in these willingly, and even though she had a problem with the pot smoke, she didn't ask them to stop, and she didn't leave the ritual. So, you would think she would be open-minded to other people using pot and, alcohol, because she herself, just that day, had been using both. You're wrong! She spends the next 2 pages practically yelling at Heath and Kayla about the fact that they have been drinking and they've been smoking pot. Pot calling the kettle black at this point. I swear to God. Okay, yeah. So, pot calling the kettle black. And, yeah, here we go on. We're just gonna keep, trucking on in this chapter. And just in case the teens reading have lost interest, we're going to hard left into a brief catfight ending Zoe and Kayla's friendship, is what I wrote. They just kind of get catty with each other, and Kayla's like, oh, well, you're not really a friend. Zoe, yells at her. It's a thing. It's stupid. It's really stupid. Kayla jumps down the wall and is like, I'm gonna leave. And before you even have a time to really register if that fight was even worth it or not to read, we go back to the right and to Zoe and Heath having a romance scene. Why, how, I don't fucking know. And did I say romance? No, we are having a blood drinking scene between Heath and her, actually. She kind of, accidentally cuts him with her nail while they're kissing, and there's blood, and she's all over it. Wasn't Zoe just upset about drinking blood a few moments ago? Fuck your life, bing bong. Oh my god, this is going to age poorly if I leave that in there. I'm going to leave it in. And after this, we insert an awkwardly sexual blood drinking scene here, which I'm not going to read because it's stupid. And did you want more from that? Did you want more exposition? Did you want the scene to go on for more than 3 paragraphs? No, you don't, because that's it. Kayla breaks it up, says she's going to call the police, and then both Heath and Kayla run off into the night. Did you think this chapter is over? No, because the very freaking last few sentences, Eric shows up. Who's Eric? Oh, yeah, you probably already forgot about his dumbass. Yeah, he's the second love interest in this book, who really hasn't shown up almost at all at this point. But yeah, are you exhausted with this yet? Because I am. So here we are jumping into chapter 18 after all that, and we are talking about Eric. We're meeting Eric. His only personality traits is he's good at monologues, and he's a nice guy, and he compliments Zoe oh so nicely. Also, I just thought it was a little weird just because his name is Eric Knight. Like, that was the name he was born with. He didn't change it to that. And I don't know if that's better or if that's worse at this point. So what do these youngsters have to talk about after all that just went down? Well, about Zoe seeing the blowjob scene. That's what. She doesn't come off and explain anything that just happened. No, she just brings that up. Don't know why you had to talk about it. Why can't you just let it go? And it's been dragged on so far in this book. Like, that happened, like, way back here, guys. This is old news. Even though technically it's only been, like, a full day since she's seen it. But whatever. But yeah, he pretty much tells Zoe how special she is, that she has bloodlust early than everybody else. And how that makes her so unusual, but so unique in her own way. And that technically most vampires don't feel bloodlust until they're nearly an adult. Zoe this entire time is like, oh my god, I'm such a freak. But Eric this entire time is telling her how enamored he is by it and how she should be proud of herself, that she's so mature. I know. It's a thing. Yeah, so Eric, at the end of this chapter, briefly mentions imprinting, and that can cause infatuation between humans, like a human and their vampire like person who fed off of them. Again, this makes no goddamn sense for reasons I'll probably get into later if I'm not too exhausted with this book to do so. And, okay. So, to start out chapter 19, we start getting into what makes Aphrodite special at this school. And it's all exposition from Stevie Ray, mind you. So this is Stevie Ray talking to Zoe. Essentially what makes Aphrodite so special in this world isn't because she's perfect and pretty looking and mean. It's actually because she has this very powerful power, essentially. And she can see tragedies that are going to happen in the future and potentially stop them. This is why she had Neferet as a mentor for a while. This is also why she is being groomed to be a high priestess, and also why she's the main girl for the Dark Daughters. And this is where we kind of get into some very, like, he said, she said things about Aphrodite and her powers, which is okay, I guess. It just, once you start thinking about it more, it doesn't make sense. And you might figure it out before I say so. But anyway, Stevie Ray is explaining to Zoe that Aphrodite is supposed to go and tell Neferet about her visions when she has them, just so that they can contact the right people to make sure that this event does not happen. But Stevie Ray, Damien, and the rest of them suspect that Aphrodite is hiding these visions from Neferet. Why, you may ask? The evidence is very, very shallow and thin. Because essentially, Stevie Ray talks about how Damien told her that he noticed that Aphrodite was having a vision, and that Aphrodite's friends closed in around her and were trying to walk her out of the room. Which was like the cafeteria or something like that. Damien noticed this, broke up the group, and pretty much dragged Aphrodite into Neferet, and where Aphrodite said that there was a plane that was going to crash and kill everybody on board. And just because of this thing where all her friends gathered in around her and was trying to shuffle her out the door, Damien made the assumption that she was trying to hide the fact that she was having a vision. This is what this idea is all based off of right here. That this is the evidence that they have. Personally, for me, I just think if you're going to try to push this narrative that Aphrodite is willing to let people die because she doesn't care, then you really have to show her being more male violent instead of just having her whine and be catty. You have to showcase her lack of liking other people to the point of letting people get hurt or even hurting them herself. Just saying some mean things and being a superficial bitch is not enough to push this home that she is that awful of a person. To top this off, you found out that Aphrodite was originally mentored to Neferet, like I said before, till Zoe came along. She also had been groomed to be next High Priestess because of her magical power being so strong, but now Zoe is also being groomed to be High Priestess. But that also gives more context to why Aphrodite is mean towards specifically Zoe as well. So, again, there are reasons for Aphrodite to be angry and catty and whiny and hateful towards Zoe herself, and yet she still hasn't tried to kill Zoe or do anything violent towards her. So again, it does not add up. This person seems to be fairly nonviolent and just kind of bitchy and Regina George-like, but she's also supposed to be able to nonchalantly allow a mass amount of people to die. I'm going to keep reiterating this because it still does not make sense to me. Aphrodite had her whole life kind of set up for herself until Zoe waltzed through the door being the special main character that she is. But honestly, you can literally forget about all of this because the last half of this chapter shoots straight into inflating Zoe's ego, and you find out that, surprise, Zoe has the rarest gift of them all, an affinity for all 5 elements, which I have said before. Yeah. So you go into this big long thing. I just did a whole rant on why that last accusation parts don't make sense. And then you can throw them out the window because the last half of this conversation is literally them talking about how Zoe feels the elements, blah, 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 special main character. I'm already bored. Let's just move on to chapter 20. So here's chapter 20. Welcome to the chapter where Zoe openly admits to wanting to take Aphrodite down. Apparently last night's conversation and debacle at the Dark Daughters thing, which the debacle of the Dark Daughters thing didn't even seem to be that big of a deal, to be honest. But whatever. And after she's like, oh yeah, Aphrodite's like letting people die and stuff like that, she wakes up the next morning and she's just like, you know what, how can I take Aphrodite down? And this becomes the plot of the rest of the book. So just like Twilight, the plot of this book doesn't show up until like the very last half of the book, as if it was just a thrown in thing. Okay, so like the previous short chapters, this one dumps quite a bit on you all at once. Not only do we get Zoe going for Aphrodite's job, we have Neferet's history, but we also learn about imprinting a little bit more and actually find out it's the name beforehand. Eric was just like, I don't know what it's called, but this is what it is. But yeah, we learn about imprinting. It's just essentially you suck someone's blood and they get super infatuated with you, like I said before. And everyone's like, oh yeah, you probably didn't imprint on this human boy, but give me his name and number and all his friends' addresses. For reasons. Just reasons. And Zoe just gives it all up. She doesn't think something's weird about this. She doesn't think anything's weird about this. She's just handing over all this information. Okay, and this is where we come into my part 4, which is the last remaining chapters, which was 22 through 29. Again, no new character introductions here, just the same old, whatever. I'm moving on. Chapter 22, we have quite a bit of notes here, starting with her friends about how to take down Aphrodite after her grandma tells her about a purification ritual to do to help clear her mind and make her, like, I don't know, good vibes only, I don't know. This is Zoe's plan to take down Aphrodite. Well, I kind of have an idea. Good, tell us and we'll brainstorm, said Stevie Ray. Everyone looked expectantly at me. I sighed. Well, I started hesitantly, afraid I was sounding like a moron, and then I decided I might as well tell them what had been on my mind since I talked to Grandma. So I finished in a rush. I thought I'd perform an ancient purification prayer based on Cherokee ritual and ask Nix to help me come up with a plan. Her friends think this is a great plan, which is a plan to make a plan, essentially. No one's gonna be like, maybe we should actually come up with a real plan instead of plan an activity to come up with said plan. It's just gonna stretch this out even longer, but whatever. Okay, so after this, the 5 friends legit talk about how Zoe is so much more powerful than Aphrodite, how she's so much better than Aphrodite, how she's such a better person than Aphrodite, and they give her one hell of an ego trip after all is said and done. Like, Jesus Christ, are these friends of her, like, Jesus Christ, all these friends of hers seem like they are straight up written into the book to boost Zoe's ego and nothing more. They legit have not had a conversation that didn't revolve around Zoe or Aphrodite this entire book. You also know next to nothing about all 4 of these friends, other than Aaron likes hair and shoes. Damien's gay and polite. Also kind of annoying sometimes. And Stevie Ray is oaky and faithful. And Shanae is black and also likes shoes. That is it. Nothing more, nothing less. So nice characterization on your part. They also have nothing negative to ever say to Zoe, even when she's acting like a prick. That's great. So, okay, moving on. They agreed for the Cherokee Purification prayer. Accepted the plan. I'm going about doing this. Guess what? This is going to be the third ritual that we get in this book, which is going to be almost the same exact as the other other two. And guess what? It's written about the same way the other ones are. So essentially, it makes it into the Nyx ritual with Sage, essentially. That's all it does. So creativity points, 0 on that one. Trust me, if you read this, you're going to get exhausted with how similar these parts are and how long they're written out. Going into chapter 23, whew, we're almost there, guys. And here we got our third ritual in about 5 or 6 chapters. Trust me, I checked. It's about that much. Zoe is the one doing the ritual. Of course, she has to be the center of attention at all times. Instead of her struggling to do the thing she's never done before, of course, she just knows. Like, she steps into the middle of the circle with all her candles and her sage and all like that, and it just comes to her out of nowhere. So this ritual is super easy, even though she's kind of building it up to be an anxious moment. You know, building it up just to let it all fall 5 seconds later, because we don't want our readers to really think Zoe has to struggle too much. Really hate how everything does come so easily for her, though. I really would appreciate if she would struggle just a little bit. Just the bare minimum would be nice. But no, that would make her seem less special to everyone, wouldn't it? Would it really, though? Okay, and to even further pump her ego up, this is a legit conversation that her friends are having as she's walking around the circle. Positive thoughts only, please, Damien said sharply. We are in the middle of a purification ritual. Before Shanae could do anything more than glare at Damien, Stevie Ray chirped, Kay, I'm thinking only positive things, like how great it would be if Zoe was the leader of the Dark Daughters. Good idea, Stevie Ray, Damien said. I'm thinking the same. Hey, that's my happy thought too, Aaron said. Peter Pan with me, twin, she called to Shanae, who stopped scowling at Damien and said, I'm always up for some happy thoughts, and it'd be damn nice if Zoe was in charge of the Dark Daughters and on her way to being High Priestess for real. It's just more proof that her friends have no personality other than to boost her ego. But also, first of all, Zoe is mentored by Neferet, which meaning she's already being slightly groomed for High Priestess, just like Aphrodite was. Second of all, why do you give a fuck about if Zoe is the leader of the Dark Daughters or not? You never stated this really beforehand until here. Why do you care? You're not even in the Dark Daughters. None of you guys even want to be in the Dark Daughters. So why do you care so much? I think it's just because you care this much because you just don't want to see Aphrodite win? I don't know. Oh, ice just fell. But, like, I just don't understand the consistency with these characters. Also, just a reminder, this whole thing is being put on because Zoe wants Nyx to tell her how to take Aphrodite down, another fledgling that Nyx handpicked to be special as well. Please make it make sense to me. We are literally going to be watching the battle to see who is more special. Zoe or Neferet. Zoe or Aphrodite. Don't know why I keep getting the two names confused. I bet you can guess who will win in the end, though. And it's not Aphrodite, trust me. It's not. Okay. So we have chapter 24, which is just... There's like 3 lines written here. And all it says is, honest, there's nothing in this chapter we haven't already seen. Zoe questions why she's so special. And then Eric appears like a fucking stalker. He's always there when she needs him. And we get kind of a stupid scene with them walking into the dorm and Eric saying how much he wants Zoe, even though they've known each other for 2 days. That's it. That's all this chapter is. It's just romance fodder. Make all the girls go, squee! Whatever. 25. We're almost done. So close. Like I said, like 2 chapters ago. I'm getting repetitive myself. And we start out with I think this is like halfway through the chapter, whatever. But we come off with another death scene. Death. destruction. Ugh. Zoe's not really put off by it, though. It's the same kid who was used as the blood donor from the Dark Daughters ritual. The kid that was sitting in the chair, this is the kid that dies. This is also the redhead that she didn't like at the stables. She's been dissing on through the whole book because he's not popular and he's kind of gross looking, apparently. And she doesn't like redheads, okay? Except for Neferet for some reason, but she's not a gross redhead. Anyway, I'm going off topic. So essentially, Elliot starts coughing, and she goes, geesh, the kid was totally and completely annoying. Somewhere in the middle of the chapter. They're in lit class, by the way. And the obnoxious coughing, they're in lit class, by the way. So, somewhere in the middle of the chapter, and the obvious coughing, I started to smell something there. It's kind of a weird sentence. It was rich and sweet, delicious and elusive. Automatically inhaled deeply, still trying to concentrate on the book. Elliot's coughing got worse, and with the rest of the class, I turned to give him a dirty look. I mean, please, could he not get a cough drop or a drink of water or whatever? And then I saw the blood. Okay, so also, it's been commented on that you get really sick when you start to die, you start coughing. It's the same thing we saw in the beginning of the book, because that's how Zoe was actually dying at the moment. So, and, like, fledgling vampires don't get sick at all, so I don't understand why as soon as she heard the coughing, she didn't think something was suspicious, but whatever. This kid, Elliot, pretty much bleeds from every orifice and is taken from the room with Neferet. She also tells them, she also tells all her wonderful students that, yep, the kid's gonna die. Nope, there's no saving him, he's dead. Just pretend you didn't see anything, y'all. Have fun, everyone, and forget you saw shit. Legit, her speech reminds me of the line from Lord Farquaad in Shrek. Some of you may die, but that's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. That sums up her entire, like, paragraph-long speech. I'm not even going to read it to you because that sums it up entirely, and it's less words. Also, we have this conversation between Zoe and Stevie Ray that really shows their empathy for the situation. No one liked Elliot, and somehow I think that makes it worse, Stevie Ray said. It was weirdly easier with Elizabeth. At least we could feel honestly sorry she was gone. I know what you mean. I feel upset, but I know I'm really upset that I saw what could happen to us, and now I can't get it out of my mind. And not upset that the kid's dead. These are our main two characters that we're supposed to like and empathize with and put ourselves into their roles. And they're admitting that they don't care this kid's dead. Zoe just watched himself cough up blood to death, and she's like, yeah, it was easier with Elizabeth because I didn't really get to see it, for one. And two, nobody likes him. But now I feel self-conscious because now I know that can happen to me. Except we all know it can't happen to her because it's already been stated that she's so fucking special she doesn't have to worry about dying. Then she gets some text messages from Heath, who's continually stalking her by phone, it seems like. So obviously there's going to be a problem coming up very, very soon about that. Okay, so here we are at chapter 26. We just kind of open up to Aphrodite crumpled in a hallway. Obviously in this she's having a vision of some sort. But guess where she's found? She's found on the way to Neferet's office. But this is kind of glossed over. Zoe sees this and assumes that Aphrodite is trying to hide her vision from Neferet because she's crumpled on the ground in the shadows. It also makes it very clear in this that Aphrodite cannot communicate or pretty much do anything when she has these visions. Zoe literally has to kind of like pick her up and move her down the hallway. And we don't get to know much about this vision that Aphrodite has. She's just kind of muttering about blood coming out of someone or something. I think it's someone, obviously not something. Which kind of suggests another vampire kid possibly dying. Who knows? She does comment on the fact that the dead people are not right, which kind of alludes to the dead girl Elizabeth earlier that we saw. The other suspicious thing that happens in this sequence of events is that Neferet shoos Zoe away quite immediately, and instead of using just the excuse of that Aphrodite needs some privacy, or, you know, you really shouldn't be witnessing this other student have this issue, she pretty much blames Elliot's death for Aphrodite not being able to figure out what her visions try to tell her, and says that's why she's incoherent and having these issues. Which seems kind of like weak sauce to me, since Aphrodite didn't even like Elliot. She's only met him maybe one other time in this novel. So now, okay, now to make it maybe seem a little bit more logical, Zoe does say that people are a bit sad, a bit withdrawn, and a bit emotional because of Elliot's death, just because two kids have died within 24 hours of each other. So that does maybe hold a little bit of water, but just not enough for this, this. But I give Zoe a little bit of credit for thinking something is slightly off about Aphrodite and the vision, just because she's been told that Aphrodite's visions are usually clear and this one's not, but she kind of just pushes that aside because she instantly gets into a fight with her friends because they want to go to the Dark Daughters ritual with her. That's like later on tonight. Of course, her being the main character, she gets pissy with them and says, no, you cannot, because, you know, I'm special and you're not, so whatever. Just that kind of thing. But this fight pretty much just makes it so that Zoe's alone when this next event happens. A terrible chill fingered its way down my spine even before I turned to look into the direction my cat was staring. Later, I couldn't figure out why I didn't scream. I remember my mouth opening so I could gulp air, but I was absolutely silent. It seemed I'd gone numb, but that was impossible. If I'd been numb, there was no way I could have been so thoroughly petrified. I'm pretty sure petrified is actually another way of saying numb, but whatever. Elliot was standing not 10 feet from me in the darkness that shadowed the space next to the wall. He must have been heading in the same direction Nala and I were walking. Then he heard Nala and half turned back toward us. She hissed again at him, and with a frightening quick movement, he whirled around to face us. Now, she states that Elliot is a ghost in this, but he ends up actually lunging at her and attacking her. Nala ends up saving them by scratching him and drawing blood, which proved to her that he is not a ghost. I don't know why she thought he and Elizabeth were ghosts in the first place, but I guess, I don't know, that's just what the authors went with. I kind of would have went with zombie, but whatever. I remember as a kid I genuinely wanted to know why these kids were coming back to life if this was not something that normally happens. And I kind of wish that the book's more centered around this aspect, especially early on, instead of this teen drama with the love triangle and Aphrodite. Because I find this way more interesting than anything else in this book. It's just sad that it only comes that far near the end. And in this one, you get next to nothing for it. So, it is what it is. I understand it is the first book, though. The only thing that I really wish the authors would have done is had Zoe at least make some small connection between Aphrodite's vision and Elliot, because these two things happen, of course, in the same chapter within pages apart. And Elliot's even brought up when talking about Aphrodite. Granted, Neferet was giving an excuse, but I feel like that's enough of a bridge for her to possibly connect the really weird vision that Aphrodite had with at least Elliot the undead vampire kid. But this does not happen. But I'm assuming you, with me just talking about this chapter and how this book is going, you've already made that connection, honestly. Alright, so chapter 27. Welcome to ritual number 4, folks. But first we have to open this ritual with Zoe nonchalantly threatening Aphrodite, because why wouldn't we do that? Okay. So, Aphrodite is coming in and complimenting Zoe on her dress, which, mind you, is the same dress that Zoe stole from her at the last Dark Daughters ritual. So she's like, hey, Zoe, nice dress. It looks like mine. Oh, wait, it is. And Zoe comes back with, hi, Aphrodite. Gosh, I was reading the chapter in Soch 415 book Neferet gave me about how important it is for the leader of the Dark Daughters to make every new member of that group feel welcome and accepted. You must be proud that you're doing your job so well. And then I stepped a little closer to her and lowered my voice so she alone could hear me. And I must say, you look better than you did the last time I saw you. So that's our main character, folks. The one we're supposed to be rooting for. The one we're supposed to feel inclined to like and adore. Here she is being absolutely mean to this girl who just had this horrifying, traumatic episode. Like, why? Now, Zoe does say that she does feel a little sorry for Aphrodite for saying that, because Aphrodite gets really upset about it. And Aphrodite responds with, fuck off, freak, which I think is an acceptable response. Actually, I think that's a very downplayed response that she could have done. She could have, like, clawed her eyes out. She could have, like, gotten her face. No, she just was like, fuck off. And as soon as Aphrodite tells her to fuck off and calls her a freak, Zoe immediately says she doesn't feel that bad for saying it after that. So, okay. Who's the bigger mean girl? Zoe or Aphrodite? Like, it literally, like, Zoe's like, oh my god, what if we get caught? And Eric's like, don't worry, everybody knows we do this. And they're fine with it. So, again, no real anxiety, no real build-up right there, just whatever. Also, I guess the number one rule of this is just don't get in trouble. Which, is there any parental or guardianship type supervision of these kids? They're all between the ages of like 14 to 17, and none of them know how to adult properly yet. They're turning into these new creatures, and they don't know their own bodies, they don't know anything. And everybody that's an adult's like, they're fine, we can trust them. Okay, whatever. Also going to be hill I'm going to die on this whole section, but I'm going to add one more note to this disciplinary allowing these kids to sneak out thing. This doesn't make sense since it's referenced in earlier chapters that students will get heavily punished for fighting or breaking rules. And these same faculty members who will dish out a can of whoop-ass over any teen behavior are completely fine with underage teens sneaking out into the world to do God knows what. Sounds sketchy at best. And okay, so they try to make this out also as just a normal kid sneak out, like we're gonna go party, do some drugs in a park or something like that, or somebody's house. No, they're actually trespassing onto the Philbrook Museum. And it's interesting because Zoe does mention that it has 24-hour guards. And then we find out from Eric that Aphrodite has drugged the fucking security guards, like every single one. When did she have time to do this between her having this vision and dinner? No idea, but she managed to do this. What did she drug them with? How did she get it? Fuck you, you don't get to know. Whew. So we're finally at the ritual after all that. This one is slightly different because Aphrodite is going to try to summon spirits to the circle. Now, I have several issues with this section, but we'll go about this very slowly since this is like one of the end chapters, and this is where things go down. And if you miss a section of it, you're going to be lost. So first of all, Zoe says how summoning spirits can be very dangerous, and instantly assumes that Aphrodite has the skill necessary and the knowledge to not call anything too scary because she's a bully and doesn't like anyone stronger than her. So, okay, that's your logic. Aphrodite knows these things, and she knows not to call anything super spooky and dangerous because she's a bully and can't stand people stronger than her. Okay, check. Noted. Trust is instantly shown as a mistake on Zoe's part as soon as Aphrodite calls the spirits to the circle, because Zoe notices Aphrodite has done it wrong. She had burned sweet grass and gone into the ritual instead of using sage first, which Zoe makes a big deal about this, but Zoe literally just goes, oh well, too late now, and doesn't try to do anything to stop what's about to happen. So, no offense, I kind of blame Zoe for all the events that are about to happen as well, because she could have done something, but she just was like, well, things are happening too fast, and oh well, like, oh well, I'm not the one making the mistake, so. Aphrodite is actually interrupted before she can finish her ritual by Heath. Yes, by the boy with the fucking chocolate bar for a name is what I have written, which is hilarious. Chapter 28. So yeah, we definitely have a problem here. Heath, again, is not supposed to be there, obviously, and he's somehow found Zoe, not entirely sure how he was able to do this. But Zoe and him are having this little spat. Eric kind of gets involved. And then we get them finally focusing on Aphrodite, who starts acting wrong and kind of sketchy. And spoiler alert, she is now possessed to the fact that he dangerously interrupted her. And also just because she didn't burn sage first. Anyway, the spirits do leave Aphrodite and they go to attack Heath because he's the lonely human in this group. And then, bam, the dream team appears. Yes, Zoe's friends have been here the entire time. They've only waited to this precise moment to jump out and reveal themselves. Why they waited till it got to the absolute worst? Well, it's a young adult novel, that's why. It's kind of almost like they wanted Aphrodite to fuck up, but in her fucking up, she put a lot of people's lives at danger. Now, what are the other kids doing? Because there are, like, a good half dozen, or maybe about a dozen other kids here. They're just kind of standing around. That's it. And there are actual people holding the candles up by Aphrodite, but they've been dead silent this entire time. My only thought of why Aphrodite's friends left the circle, besides the fact that they wanted to show that Aphrodite's friends were not loyal, was to have Zoe's Scooby Gang come on in and show Aphrodite up and remake the circle with the power of friendship and save the day. Which, guess what, is what really happens. All the friends are there. Stevie Ray was in a chair as the blood donor. She was recognized. She wasn't recognized at the time because she had a cloak on. Aaron and Shanae literally just appear beside Zoe. It was if the authors didn't know where to hide the two. It was as if the authors didn't know where to hide the pair of girls, so they just put them behind Zoe's back so they didn't have to figure it out, which I find freaking hilarious. So, as we continue to the very end of the book, Zoe uses her main character powers to suck the spirits away from Heath. He's slightly injured, so is Eric, who's trying to fend off the weird ghosty demon things. Zoe finishes out the circle by saying goodbye to all the elements, by doing, we've already been through all this. Like, this is part of the same old, same old. And at the very end of this, of course, somebody makes the comment that Zoe's mark has changed. And I'm not even going to read that part because it's fucking exhausting. Everyone's just like, oh my god. Like, literally, she just goes to each one of her friends and everyone's like, oh my god. Your face. It's beautiful. And it's just, like, I'm exhausted. So, if you can guess, Zoe's mark has turned into a full-grown vamp mark for some reason, even though she's still a fledgling. She has, like, weird little, like, abstract designs, which I find hilarious since everyone's design is supposed to signify them in some way. But Zoe's is just abstract, so it can be whatever you want. It's never been explained very well. But lo and behold, she's even more special than that because she not only has it on her face, but she has it on her shoulders and her back. Like down her spine. No vampire in the history of being a vampire has ever had a mark like this. Woo! Zoe, you got us. You're so special. After we have Zoe also being a cunt bag to Aphrodite one more time. So this is her taking Aphrodite down a peg, apparently. She calls Aphrodite a bully, takes a step closer, and gets in her face and says, "This whole change is hard enough without somebody like you, unless we want you to be your," I glanced at Damien, smiled, "your sycophants." I cannot say that word, too many S's. "You make us feel like we don't belong, like we're nothing. That's over, Aphrodite. What you did tonight was totally, completely wrong. You almost caused Heath to die, maybe even Eric, and who knows who else. It was all because of your selfishness." Though Aphrodite does comment on the fact that it wasn't her fault that Heath showed up, Zoe does not take any credit for that and says that it was not Heath's fault and continues with, "It was your fault that your so-called friends wouldn't stand by your side and keep the circle strong, and it was your fault that negative spirits found the circle to begin with." She looked confused, which pissed me off even more. "Sage, you hateful hag. You're supposed to use sage to clear up negative energies before you use sweetgrass, and it's not surprising that you drew such horrid spirits." Nice to know she was never, first of all, worried that much about Heath, because he is still laying on the ground. unconscious. So that's great. But also nice to know that you're spending your extra time beating Aphrodite into the ground. You're acting like she's stupid when she just didn't know something. And you did know it, so you could have done anything in your power to help that situation. You're also pretending it wasn't his fault that Aphrodite got interrupted. Also, so far, so good. Like, so far... Also, so far, Zoe, you've been nothing but horrible and judgy and just as bad as Aphrodite, if not sometimes worse. So if you would have called that circle, you probably would have called, like, the mother of all dark, evil, like, demonic energy things. I don't even know what, like, ghost. Like, spirits, that's what it was. The word I'm looking for is spirits, y'all. So I don't want to hear nothing from you, Zoe. Also, strangely enough, Zoe was able to say all that in front of Neferet. Yep, chapter 29. Neferet is now here. Of course she is. I think this is the last chapter. Let me check. Yep, it is. It is the last chapter. So, of course, just to sum it up, everything goes into Zoe's favor. Essentially, Neferet admits that she knew Aphrodite was not being a great person, but never saw anything visually herself, so she was letting it pass. I don't know what the logic is in that, but she also gives Aphrodite a reaming. She ends up taking the Dark Daughters and Sons away from her. She ends up being essentially kicked off the roster to be groomed for High Priestess. She essentially loses everything in this moment. And everyone else, meaning Zoe and her friends, are celebrating this downfall of Aphrodite. I just don't like characters who celebrate the downfall of somebody else, and even if that person isn't a great person. Like, it seems kind of scummy of you to not have even the ounce of compassion there. And of course, during all this, Zoe also gets handed over all the things that Aphrodite lost, right in front of Aphrodite, actually. Zoe becomes the leader of the Dark Daughters, even though she's never really stated that's exactly what she wanted. They just all assume that's what she wanted, but whatever. She also is being groomed for High Priestess now, even though she technically already was to begin with. This was just saying it out and out now. And this entire time, Neferet's also commenting at how special she is because of her new markings, and the goddess really has plans for her, and isn't she just the specialist of all specialist girls? Special, 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 special. It's reiterated a lot, trust me. Oh, I do have a note in here saying about this whole speech that Neferet does say, with how many times it's reiterated how Zoe is special and unique and blah 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 and amazing. It's like the authors don't have anything else to say about Zoe except that she is amazing at all times and she doesn't even have to try. This is such lazy writing, especially for award-winning authors. I honestly wonder if this was just a fun side project for these two and they weren't actually taking it that seriously, is what I have written here. And you think we're all done here, right? No! Aphrodite does get one last scene before we go. And this, actually, I really kind of like. Because you might have won tonight, but this isn't over, she told me. She made me feel really tired. I wasn't trying to win anything. I was just trying to make things right. That's completely a lie. You were trying to win from the beginning, but whatever. And that's what you think you did. Her eyes darted nervously back and forth from me to the path that led to the gazebo, as if somebody had followed her. You don't really know what happened here tonight. You were just being used. We were all just being used. We're all puppets. That's all we are. She angrily wiped at her face, and I realized she was crying. And then Zoe tries to be like, oh, we can be friends. And Aphrodite's like, no. And she's like, these are the parts we were supposed to play. You'll see, you'll see. And she kind of drifts off. And at this point is when Zoe, the very last page, this is when she connects Elliot, Elizabeth, and the vision that Aphrodite had, and tries to ask Aphrodite about it. And all Aphrodite will say is, it's only the beginning, it's going to get much worse. And she runs off because Zoe's friends show up. So Aphrodite actually shows that she does have fear of these friends. And this is how this novel ends. Okay, so here we are at the end. Here's my little summary or little thoughts and feelings, I guess. I don't know. Would it be? Whatever. After rereading this, I find it hard to find why my teenager self found this interesting. Granted, there's a bit of mystery and suspense, but it doesn't show up till it doesn't show up in the first novel until it's nearly over. And the very final draw of suspense was, I guess, that last little bit of Aphrodite. So maybe that's what kept me hanging on. Instead of getting a very captivating adventure that we get from a very outspoken or downtrodden main character, we follow a rather self-centered main character plan out the downfall of a fellow student and win. We don't get that whimsical adventure that I kind of thought it would be. Every girl is written as catty and spiteful, and the sheer amount of slut-shaming makes me want to dunk my head into a bucket of rancid water rather than keep reading it. And yet I did. There were parts where I just completely glossed over because I was tired of reading how crappily Zoe was treating people. Every guy that we meet wants nothing more than to be the new boy toy of our main boo. And that's all they're there for. That's all their character. This is minus Damien, of course, but he is written cringingly like a female character in this story, which makes me cringe. Also want to dunk my head in a bucket of rancid water. Okay, so we also see a large amount of representation in this novel, which is great. I love to see representation, but all of it is forced. And speaking from an LGBT stance, I rather the authors haven't tried to put these characters in general. It would be more excusable if this was a fanfic by a 13-year-old, but it's done by two full-grown adult women. And the fact that it was written in 2007 is no excuse, because as adults, they should have known better. If you can't do it right, don't do it at all. I understand you put an effort into it, but sometimes your effort just is not enough. I guess to be not all negative, some highlights I want to pull out is that the story itself was fairly well written. I want to say, like, when it comes to easy to read and easy to follow. The world that they live in does seem interesting, and there really isn't a boring part in the book, at least for teens. There are some parts for me that just weren't vibing, but I think it's because, again, I'm 26 and I'm gay. Here, would I recommend this book to someone? Well, to a teenager, absolutely not. You can get so much more from other books that do so much better with so much less. It's just not that good, and it doesn't hold up at all. For adults, yeah, I would say if you want a giggle, a laugh, if you want to tear something apart, this would be fun for shits and giggles. So as we go out, I think this is enough said right here. I'll be ending my first extremely long video here. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a comment, a like, anything down below. Give me some feedback. This was very stressful to make, and it's been on the back burner for a long time, so I'd like to hear what people have to say. As of now, I do want to make the rest of this series. There are 12 books. This is going to be a lot, but I'm going to try. So, everyone stay safe, stay as healthy as you can, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.